Okay, so welcome back to my podcast. It's been so long since I sat down and recorded an episode. I think it's been more than half a year. I think there was only one podcast episode this year, and the fact that I didn't even check before recording this really tells you how unserious I am about this podcast. And I know it sounds really awful to say, but I gotta be honest, I gotta admit that has it been on my priority list, I would have come back sooner and recorded a podcast. But honestly, the reason why I wasn't recording any new episodes is that it's really hard to kind of divide your time between different projects you have. And as a freelance journalist slash writer, and then I have my YouTube channel, podcast was always the last thing on my priority list. But also I really wanted to take this podcast into interviewing type, and unfortunately, and this I gotta be honest, it didn't turn out well. I had reached out to a few different authors or people, and it was just either no response or oh yeah, I'll tell my publicist about it, and then it's silence. And I just recently read Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. If you have heard about her, you probably know a thing or two about today's modern literature. But yeah, if you don't know, she's a very well-known author. She has produced a few books in the last few years, and Yellowface is her more ironic novel that's very short compared to her other works. So anyways, there she basically tells a story about this white woman who steals a story written by her Asian friend. So Yellowface here means literally that she is pretending to be Asian as someone of not Asian descent. And there she spills tea on all these things people are doing. And yeah, one of the quirks she shared was that when someone who is whatever creator reaches out, they're oh yeah, I'll talk to my publicist and stuff like that. And I was oh wow, I feel called out in this book. I feel I am that small creator who no one cares about, and they're giving you all these excuses that you need to talk to my publicist and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it did disturb my ego. But not only that, it's just really difficult to produce a podcast when no one wants to come. But then at the same time, I had people that I don't know reaching out to me that they want to be on my podcast, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to just have anyone on my podcast that I'm not genuinely interested in, and I'm not interested in having a conversation with that person, because that's not gonna fly. So that's mainly why I stopped with podcasting. But I was thinking a few ideas enter my head, and I'm this is something I would love to discuss on my podcast. And you know what, it came to this point where there are changes in my life that I want to share on my podcast. So here I am back with a new episode for Sincerely Leila. And yeah, let's just discuss what's new. And the biggest thing is that I moved to Brussels. I didn't move alone. A lot of people in real life, when I would announce that I'm moving to Brussels, they're is your husband coming? And to me, it's just a crazy question, because maybe it's because I come from, Azerbaijani Kazakh family, but for me, it's crazy to move somewhere if my husband is not coming. I think then it's just I don't think how we can stay together. So yeah, my husband of course came with me. It's something that has always been honestly discussed, not specifically the move to Brussels, but overall that I never wanted to stay in Prague long term, but somehow my life kept on bringing me back there. So in this episode, I really want to dive deeper into my immigration story, because for the past 9 years, I have been an immigrant in Europe. And you can use the word expat, because I'm not really, I don't have a citizenship here, so I don't think I have integrated into any system to be an immigrant. But I think immigrant is a political term here more to represent that I'm part of this class of people who are coming from third world countries, developing countries to Europe or like other Western like countries such as US or Canada. And we're coming for better life. In that way, the term immigrant, I feel like, suits me more. But let's just go into it, and I will finally share why the hell am I specifically in Brussels. So I don't want to like really go too much deep into it, but let's just say when I graduated from high school, in 2013, I first immigrated to Malaysia because a lot of kids in my high school were talking about going to Malaysia, and I was just like following the crowd. But originally, I always wanted to move to Prague. Like, I don't know why that city, like, when I saw photos of it, when I found out that you can study for free if you learn the language, I was like, I want to move there. So it was always something I wanted to do. And I remember telling my father about it, and he was like, there's like this Russian term that's like free cheese is only in a mousetrap. Like you can only find free cheese in a mousetrap, like that. So in Russian, this term makes sense, and it's like the phrase you use when basically you don't get things for free. So my father really didn't believe me, and I was like so miserable in my high school. I wanted to graduate sooner and immigrate to Prague or like just move to study there when I was 16. So that was like, 2-3 years before I graduated. And then when I started coming closer to graduation, I was like, oh, but in Malaysia you can study in English and it's warm there and everyone is going there. And I had this like classmate who went there the summer before just for English language courses, and she was like buzzing about it. So it just sounded so amazing. And I actually moved to Malaysia at first. And I spent there 10 days. My father paid already for my first semester. So, long story short, there was a lot of sacrifice. I felt very guilty to just leave Malaysia without studying, and we lost half of the tuition for the first semester. It was a very stupid and dumb decision. I don't regret about it because honestly, everything happens for a reason and it had to be that way. But at the same time, I'm like, now at 29, looking back at being 18 in a foreign country, I know now I would just like at least stay there for a year, do that foundation, I think, year that was my first year, and then like think about it. But I was like a scared child for the first time in a foreign environment. Like I had a cultural shock, honestly. So it was just a lot. And I'm so grateful to have a father who was like, you know what, daughter, like come home, we're gonna make it work. And my father was so afraid for me, and I feel like that really is the reason why I was afraid for me. Like I felt like something's gonna happen to me, which was my anxiety. And then when I returned, my mother was like really unhappy with it because she was always the one pushing me to learn English so I could move away from Kazakhstan. And I'm really sorry if like fellow Kazakh people, Kazakhstani people are listening who are very like proud to be from Kazakhstan, but I always wanted to immigrate. Like I was just one of those people. And I know people from like first world countries, European countries who felt the same way. So I really don't think it's something about being specifically from a post-Soviet country or like disrespect to, Central Asia. But I think some of us are born in countries we don't feel like we belong to, and I think it's normal. Like, and I think it should be normal. It should be normalized, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. So I'm not gonna be bullied for it. I'm not gonna let you bully me for it. Okay. So when I returned, I spent the next year really like taking a gap year. I did Spanish language course. I went back to my father's home country, to Azerbaijan, to kind of reconnect with my roots. Then, which was actually the last time I've been to Azerbaijan, like was in 2014. So since then I haven't made it back, and I definitely need to. So when I actually returned from Azerbaijan, I felt like very grateful because I was like, you know what, my dad came from that, like, because my dad is from a small village in Azerbaijan, he's not from the capital. So like it was like a reminder to me that my father didn't go this far for me to just give up now, at 19. I haven't yet turned 19 at the time, but almost 19, I was like, I'm gonna make it work. And I got a job at this fashion magazine in Kazakhstan, and that really proved to me that I do want to study journalism. Because another thing about Malaysia was that I chose marketing management as my major, and I realized that I cannot do that. Like, I want specifically to study journalism. So, I don't regret that. I think it was a learning curve there. I would love to go back to Malaysia now that I'm older, now that I'm not this, young child who got terrified of um like the amount of multiculturalism, I guess, and the environment. Like, everything is so busy, everything is like, it was just like totally different. And I would love to go back now as an adult just to see it, not to live there. Just to, kind of revisit it now that I'm older. But yeah, I'm grateful for that experience nonetheless, because it made me realize that I do want to live in Europe. At least at that time, I was like, I don't see myself living in Asia. Like, I think it's just not for me. It's just too busy, too, everything is happening all at once, it feels like. So I was like, you know what? I always wanted to go to Prague, and at this point, like, I wasted, not wasted, but it's been a year that I lost. While all of my classmates were like studying, I was like, working as a journalist, studying Spanish, and it was fun. Like, now looking back, I'm glad I had that experience. But at the time, I was like feeling like I don't have enough of something, like I'm not good enough. So I was like, I'm not gonna go for 1 year language course now because I already wasted 1 year. I'm just gonna go and study in English, which meant my dad would have to pay for my education. And I am so grateful that my dad did, because I'm so glad that I studied journalism. I definitely can tell, like, I cannot see myself doing anything else but something related to media, communications, journalism, like writing, all of that is where my passion truly is and what I'm truly good at. Like, I wish I was good at like graphic design or something cool like that, or like IT, right? Because that's where money is at and opportunities. And I feel like as someone in the media sphere, you're always not as, it's not, you know, the field is not growing as much as those other digital spheres. But nonetheless, here I am, like having my own podcast and like still pushing this whole I don't know if it's journalism thing, because I do work as a writer for now design media, but this is where, you know, my reason for moving to Brussels comes in. So we will return to this, I think, because I just want to finish with the whole Prague situation. So I loved living in Prague for the first 3 years. So I studied for 3.5 years, and then 1 year I spent in Prague working at this like media company funded by the US government. So first 3 years I loved it, but closer to the graduation I started like feeling like I can't stay in this city. And one of the biggest reasons is honestly people, and lack of multiculturalism. I never really like had any problems with identifying as Muslim, because for me it was always like culturally I'm Muslim, but I don't like practice. So everyone in Kazakhstan, at least when I was growing up, like if your friend is like Christian, like no one really does anything with religion. It's just like, oh yeah, like, I belong to this religion, you belong to that religion. So it was just like nonchalant. And then when I moved to Prague, I had like really like realized how much people hate Muslims, how they believe in like all this crap about Islamophobic BS you hear online or on TV. Because I always thought it's just like something you hear on TV, it's happening, but like I never had experience with it until I moved to Prague. And so I'm mentioning it now, but I think this topic deserves its own podcast episode, because like my experience with Islamophobia living in Prague, or in Europe, like is a completely like topic that deserves its own discussion. So I'm not gonna go there right now, but I just want to mention that this has been on my mind ever since I moved in 2015 to Prague, because I moved during Syrian refugee crisis and the time when ISIS was the biggest topic, okay, in the news, in the media. And because I was studying journalism, we were discussing a lot what's going on in the media, So I felt like I was really scared of being openly Muslim in Europe. And I think because that was my first year, it really influenced the rest of my life in Europe, or at least in Prague. So when I moved to Slovenia for 2 years, those years were like whatever, like nothing was happening in my life. I was just waiting around for my husband to finish his master's studies. But honestly, years went by and I realized that I kind of missed my opportunity to get my master's. So when I graduated, my dad didn't have any more money to fund my studies. Luckily, it was enough to provide for my bachelor's, and I'm so grateful. I never hold anything against my dad. He did the best he could with what he had. And also another thing, when I moved to Prague, Kazakh currency went downhill. It was just completely unreliable. It kept on going lower and lower. So my education stayed the same, but for my father it was paying more and more every year. And yet he made sure that I had my own apartment that I rented by myself, that he paid for. And I want to say that because this is the man that raised me, that always made me feel sure that I matter, And it's not about money, but it's just about sacrifices. So when he said he didn't have any more to provide for my master's, I know he would literally sell everything he could, but it was just at this point no longer, possible to pay for my education. So in 2018, when I graduated, when I started working, and then I fell in love. It was just honestly such a crazy period. Now looking back, I'm I can't believe I just got married. I knew a guy for less than a year and I married him. And here we are 6 years later, still together. But now at 29, I'm at 23, I fell in love and I just was crazy in love enough to follow the guy to his country that didn't have opportunities for me. I left my ambitions and I just was trying to make it work in a foreign country that is not welcoming to foreigners in terms of there's just no opportunities. It's not people are racist or something, but it's just it's a small country that just has enough for themselves, and it's not one of the expat hubs where foreigners can come and build life in big numbers, And so I didn't see my life in Slovenia for that reason. So when my husband got a job away from Slovenia, I was happy, even though it was Prague, the city that I have already a lot of, I don't know how to even describe it because I don't want to say painful memories or something dramatic like that, but you can tell I was since 2015 afraid of living in Prague because it's a very Islamophobic country, very racist people, and I hate when people who are white and Slavic start telling me that that's not true because they didn't have experience like that. It's maybe because you look like them and they literally cannot even tell you're not one of them, but it's very different when you literally, someone who looks like me, I know that I'm white passing. I know that if I say, oh, I'm Spanish or Italian or Greek or something like that, people will buy it. So it's still this she might be some sort of white, right? But it's different when you live in Central or Eastern Europe. For them, whiteness is on another level. So I would see so many times people looking at me angrily in the public transport, and I was always feeling afraid. And I had shared on my YouTube channel that I had a few instances where people would just start arguing with me because I sat somewhere, or I don't know, even cashiers, stuff like that. So at some point it just enough is enough, So when we were moving to Prague, I was it's just for a few years until we find something better. And honestly, a few years turned into 3, which I guess it's still a few years, but I felt so stuck. I felt stuck with my career. Still, I was, of course, I had a job, like I was getting jobs and like in Slovenia, so it wasn't like all that bad, but I feel like I just felt like I cannot move beyond this. Like I'm trying to grow, I'm trying to go somewhere with this, and it's just like I'm stuck in the same spot. And Prague is a beautiful city and it feels like home because I spent 7.5 years there. But it's just like, I always felt like I have something else out there for me and I need to go out there to actually get it. I was like looking back at how my husband got to get his master's because I moved for him to Slovenia so we could continue our relationship while he is building himself up, and I never got this opportunity. And now that I'm in a position where I can actually save up for my own education, I decided to go for it. So the news is out. I moved to Brussels because I'm starting my master's. My master's in journalism that I have been eyeing since 2018. Why I chose this university in Brussels is honestly because it's really difficult to find masters in journalism in English in Europe. If you want to find it, it's usually in London or like UK or Canada or US, which are all crazy expensive. Like if you are not from a loaded family, I don't think you can go to those countries. And cheers to those who can, who have family who could like pay for their education. Like it's amazing if you had that opportunity. I just don't have anyone who would pay for me but myself. So I actually applied for this program last year, but because last year we had this Bali wedding that I was saving up, like Bali wedding, it was all on me because that's how we agreed to do it. I basically put everything I make towards tickets, the wedding organization. Last year, because I was doing all of that, I couldn't save up for my education at the same time. So, although I was accepted last year, I didn't go through with it, but I decided, you know what, I still want to do it. So, I applied again this year, and here we are in Brussels. It's actually crazy to say because, like I said, it took 6 years for me to get here, and there's a part of me that feels like some sort of resentment to myself. I just feel like it's a bit weird to start your master's at 29. But I was discussing this with one of my friends, and she studied business administration, and she was like telling me how literally that's normal for MBA students, for example. Like you cannot just go to MBA right after. You need like to have some years of experience like working, and that made me feel better. I'm like, yeah, well, that makes sense because actually some journalism masters that I was eyeing, but they were very expensive, but they also have like that you need to have a few years actually working experience before you apply for masters. So you know what, at the end of the day, like I will turn 30 either way, and I might turn 30 not having masters, or I might turn 30 getting my master's, So when I'll be 31, I'll already have my master's degree. But I think also another thing is a lot of people think once you get married as a woman, especially, like you put your priorities or your needs aside or like your ambitions. And that's still something that despite all the talk about equality, we're still having these conversations in 2024. I forgot which year it is for a minute. I feel that it's like, what if my husband wouldn't agree to move with me to Brussels, And then I would just like go by myself, and then what would happen to our relationship, And so I think relationships are much harder, but at the same time, it's great to have the opportunity for women to have partners who understand that we also have our own ambition. And like I said, he did get a chance to get his master's. Luckily, because he's Slovenian, he got his master's for free. And I wish I had that opportunity, but I'm from Kazakhstan. And even if I go to Kazakhstan to study, I still need to pay. And corruption is a thing there, so I probably would have to pay to pass. I don't know. I never honestly even thought about studying in Kazakhstan ever because I saw like my cousins who studied in Kazakhstan, and it was just like a whole lot of mess. And I don't know, like people who can actually study and learn something in Kazakhstan, cheers to you, because I can tell for sure, like, I'm so grateful that I had an opportunity to study abroad because I learned so much about politics, about the world. I realized that I'm still, because I was living in a post Soviet country, so much of what I was learning at school was such a Soviet propaganda. And like the perception of the world is like so the other side of Iron Curtain, you know? And a lot of things I learned because I was able to go to the Western school of thought, you know, because I went actually to American university in Europe. I was introduced to American perspectives, which of course I'm not saying like the USA is the greatest country in the world, but it was just really eye-opening for me to be on the other side and to realize that things I have been learning at school are so outdated, and like we don't even discuss like the evil of Soviet Union, you know, but there's so much that happened to Kazakh people and like the land under this regime that we need to discuss. We need to put them on blast, like talk about it. But so far, our government is not ready to open uncomfortable chapters that might irritate our neighbor. So, for that reason, I know that getting education, no matter how old you are, it's the best investment. And you know, I'm actually thinking, why did it take me so long? Because I don't know, I was just like getting my nose done, getting my wedding in Bali, and I was unemployed for 2 years of my life. Well, you know, I was doing like these freelance things, but most of the times I wasn't like getting any money. So it was just a really difficult time. And that also brings me to the fact that 20s are so messy. And I think maybe if I would have like different path and if I wasn't an immigrant, uh, I would just have a much safer space to try things. But I think it's another thing that as an immigrant, you just never have time to try things because you're like always worried about your visa and like what is your status and who are you uh, like residing as, you know, and it's just never enough time to even like question your own purpose in life. So I guess marrying a European citizen that way was helpful. It's just really nice to have a support system. But at the same time, I'm like, how is it gonna be like to study while being married? Because I did it when I was like 19 to 23. So it was like very young girl alone in the city. And now I'm gonna like be doing masters as a married wife and mother to a French bulldog. So that's like a little bit, I guess, scary for me. How to balance it all out. And I'm still gonna have my freelancing job. But of course, this master's is also my attempt to kind of maybe open better opportunities that I missed out on as a bachelor student because I wasn't really aware, I guess, of the media environment and like what I should focus on. But at the same time, you know, I think you go back to the past and you'll realize like you did the best you could at the time. So yes, you didn't have the knowledge you have now, but you did the best you could at the time. So I'm really glad that I don't have to regret getting married because if it would have been like, well, I got married and now I cannot like pursue my dreams or pursue my goals or ambitions, I don't think I would be happy staying married. So I'm saying that because I don't want whoever is listening to this, like young girls, to ever feel like getting married means losing yourself and saying no to your dreams. I am very lucky to have a partner who supports me and who followed me to make one of my dreams come true. And I'm so grateful that I have an opportunity to give myself this education because as I was interviewing one of the people for one of my articles, the person mentioned that like education is something no one can take away from you. And I 100% agree with this. Like, I think I'm only the person that I am because of education, and I believe in the power of education. And that's why I never stop like educating myself, even like out of university. But now I'm really happy to go back and like get that title of master, because I come from a family of, working class people who did the best they could, but they didn't have better opportunities. And I know that like it means so much for my father for me to get masters, because he sees this as like continuation of him. And I think it also means a lot to me to do this on behalf of my father, mostly because I know he always wanted to pursue, like he wanted to become a historian, but unfortunately he didn't have, the assets to uh, pursue this education. And I just know he would be amazing at it because he knows so many like random facts and geography and all of that. And he's a very smart man who just like didn't have opportunities to, actually study, who had to like provide for himself and then his family. So this is major for me for that reason, because I know that it means a lot for my family, and we're all basically continuation of our families and all the generational trauma and all the historical events that shaped our ancestors. Like here we are today continuing and existing in spaces that probably weren't even designed for us, but here we are trying to make it all work. So I am really excited to be in Brussels, and I have been vlogging these first few weeks. I can't believe it's been weeks already since we moved. Um, and I wanted to record this podcast before I start putting out those moving vlogs, because I wanted to kind of like sit down and give you guys an honest update on why I'm in Brussels. So, yeah, to sum it all up, I'm in Brussels to study journalism for my master's. I'm continuing with journalism because I honestly cannot see myself studying or doing anything else. I was thinking maybe to go into political science or like creative writing, but then at the end of the day, I think just I want to continue the path that I started. I don't want to like start over or like learn something new in that way. I think like when you go for like masters, it's something more to get this title that you're not just bachelors of something but master of something. So that's at least how I see it as someone who comes from working class family. Like for me, the title part is really important, I'm gonna be honest, because i I don't expect this master's program to like tell me something I don't know, but I do think it is an opportunity that opens doors, and I do want to be um, an example to my children. And I do want to be an educated woman, and I do want to be, when, my husband has 2 degrees, like bachelor's and master's, I don't want to just have only one. I'm competitive like that. I want to be like proud of myself. And I think this is something that I have been always looking back at and regretting not doing or not having the opportunity to do. So I want to enter my 30s not having any regrets from my 20s. I think my 20s, I got to do everything I wanted. I tried everything I wanted, and I want to start my 30s, which I'm gonna turn 30 in like, I think 6 months or something like that. March next year, you do the math. So I want to open my 30s with like fresh look on things and not feeling like I'm dragging something from my 20s, unrealized goals, unrealized dreams. I just want to like start my 30s with like this set of acquired knowledge and titles that I have worked hard for during my 20s. So I think that's like a continuation of something I started in my 20s, this master's thing, and something I really wanted to get done by my 30s. I really love how this was supposed to be just a podcast episode about moving to Brussels and like explaining Brussels more, but then it just like went off the rails, and I just like went on with my whole life story of like my immigration, and now I'm here. I think another thing about like spending 9 years in Europe is that I still don't have my citizenship, because I lived in Prague, and in Czech Republic they don't give you citizenship if you spend less than 10 years, and only then you can apply for it, while in other countries you can actually apply for it much sooner. And I'm like, damn, like I think also because I was away for 2 years, I don't qualify that I spent 10 years, because I think it needs to be unlimited. So I already cannot do this check thing because it's too long. Also, it's too racist for me. But then I realized that I could have applied for my citizenship in Slovenia, because I did spend 2 years there as a wife of a Slovenian citizen, but I didn't know it at the time. And now I cannot apply for it because it has to be like, I need to apply at the time when I'm living there for 2 years. So I wasted two opportunities to get my citizenships. And now I'm like honestly trying to kind of choose a country where we're gonna be so I can also get my citizenship, because honestly, it saves so much time and money and nerves to just have citizenship of the first world country or EU country, in this case. I have no idea where we're gonna go after Brussels. I have no idea if we're gonna stay in Brussels for like a few years. Right now, all I know is I'm here for my master's, but I will be honest that, again, another thing, opening my 30s, I'm like, all of my friends are getting their citizenships in the Czech Republic, and it really made me realize that I'm an idiot because I wasted 9 years in Europe altogether without a motherfucking citizenship. Um, it's really sad. Like, I think it's also, I come to a realization that I need to already start building family and like all of that. So it would be great to actually have a document proving that, I have the right to exist and go vote and like be part of the society. For 9 years now, I've been feeling like an alien who just like comes and visits these countries for a few years and then like moves away. And I like at this point kind of want to start integrating somewhere, but where? I don't know yet. So who knows? For now, I'm just moving around. For now, I'm just in Brussels. My husband, my French bulldog, we're all together. And I'm just excited to start this new chapter and to share with you guys my life, because I will definitely be vlogging it. And yeah, if you want to hear any other details about my life for the next episode of my podcasts that I'm trying to bring back to life, let me know. Let me know, because I always am happy to talk about all these personal things, because this is sincerely Leila and I am always sincere about everything. But for now, that's all. Thank you guys so much. If you're still following my podcast and listening to it or watching it on YouTube, I really appreciate it. Thank you for your support. And I promise to be back with a new episode. See you later. Bye.